Early in my career, I had the opportunity to actually do a medical mission to Ghana, Africa. What we were treating was hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, the same chronic diseases that we see every day in the United States. And then one afternoon in clinic, I look out the window and I see billboards for soda, for processed snacks, for fast food. It made me realize that if we're not addressing lifestyle, environment, education, prevention, then we're not truly practicing healthcare. We're just practicing symptom management. We're all gonna die. I just don't want it to be my fault.
Welcome to the very first episode of The Young Lab, the show where internal health, performance, and regenerative aesthetics finally come together under one evidence-backed framework. So today, we're starting with the story behind the philosophy, the experience that shapes how Dr. Young thinks about longevity, vitality, and aging from the inside out. Hi, Dr. Young. I'm so excited to work with you today and really learn about your philosophies and aging as well as possible.
Well, thank you, Layla. And honestly, this feels surreal, and I am so happy to finally launch this. I've spent years thinking about how to bring all of these concepts together in a way that actually makes sense for people. Longevity, performance, aesthetics, these things are usually treated as separate worlds, but really they're not. They're all part of the same conversation about how we age and how we live. And I wanted this podcast to be the place where we connected the dots, or we connect the dots, not in a complicated textbook way, but in a real human, let's walk through this together way. Because the truth is, most people want the same things: to feel good, look good, move well, stay sharp, and stay independent as long as possible. And we're finally at a point in medicine where we can help people do that intentionally, not accidentally. So today, starting with my own story feels right. The good, the difficult, the surprising moments that shaped how I practice and how I see health. And hopefully, as people hear it, they realize that I'm not speaking from a pedestal. I'm speaking from experience, from curiosity, from loss, from learning, and from a genuine belief that we can all do better and feel better than what we've been taught to expect. I'm excited, nervous in the best way, and ready to finally share the why behind it all.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to really learn the why behind it all, too. I know, like you said, these things are often kind of separate. So you being able to connect the dots is something I'm super eager to learn about. So take us back to the beginning. Where did your philosophy around longevity and lifestyle medicine start? And what was the moment that made you kind of rethink traditional medicine?
So, when I think about the philosophy, where it truly started, my mind goes back to Ghana. Early in my career, I had the opportunity to actually do a medical mission to Ghana, Africa. It was and I keep using surreal, but it was truly a surreal experience. I mean, I was young, enthusiastic, and eager to go help. I was hoping that we would be there and we'd be treating kind of the textbook diseases that you see in Africa. And you're talking about dengue and malaria and parasitic infections. And when I got there, I realized that my assumptions were totally wrong. What we were treating was hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, the same chronic diseases that we see every day in the United States. And it kind of shook me. I mean, I remember standing in clinic and looking around and thinking, this isn't supposed to be their burden. How is this happening? And then one afternoon in clinic, I look out the window and I see the answer: billboards for soda, for processed snacks, for fast food, the same brands and marketing that you see here in America. And that was the moment that it all clicked for me. The lifestyle, the diet, the cultural shifts, they have been exported alongside everything else, and the diseases followed. What hit me hardest was that we had only brought enough medication to help people for about 2 months. And 2 months doesn't change the trajectory of chronic diseases. It doesn't fix the root cause. It doesn't empower anyone. It just pauses the inevitable. Standing there, I had this sense of sadness, frustration, and clarity. Medicine, the way we've been taught to practice, wasn't enough. I wanted to actually implement a real lasting change. I wanted to truly help people. And this trip didn't just open my eyes, it kind of reshaped my entire purpose. It made me realize that if we're not addressing lifestyle, environment, education, prevention, then we're not truly practicing healthcare. We're just practicing symptom management. Ghana was the moment I stopped thinking about disease and started thinking about longevity, vitality, and what it truly means to help someone stay well. It was the moment I began to understand that building health requires more than medication. It requires understanding, partnership, and a totally different philosophy that we have today. And honestly, that realization has helped guide my career ever since.
That's definitely impressive. And talking about your trip to Ghana, I know at one point you had a very powerful experience from medical school. So I think there was a moment that you had in the cadaver lab that really changed the way that you saw nutrition and health forever. So can you walk us through that a little bit, what that experience was like for you?
That moment is something I'll never forget. Cadaver Lab is a rite of passage for all first year medical students. It's humbling, it's intimate. I mean, we're extremely appreciative of the donation and the gift that people give us to allow us to study medicine in a very intimate way. I mean, truly, that cadaver, that person becomes your first patient, even though you never really met them. So anyway, around that time, I went to medical school in New Orleans, LSU, and I had a family member there who owned multiple McDonald's there, and he had given me a card. Uh, Pretty much, this card allowed me to go into McDonald's, get anything I wanted at any time. I meant it was a very generous gift. And it was convenient. It meant convenience for me. So one evening before heading to the lab, I remember it was a Tuesday. I stopped. It was like 7 p.m. I stopped at McDonald's near the school, and I ordered the traditional comfort food, the Big Mac, large fries, and I think they're still selling them, but the apple pies. And so I headed off to Cadaver Lab. So Cadaver Lab, my cadaver, um, was a 55-year-old woman who had died from heart disease, and she was overweight. As we worked, I saw the internal reality of her diagnosis. I meant the visceral fat around her organs, the changes in her tissue, story pretty much that her body carried. And despite how clinical the environment was, I remember feeling a deep respect for her. She had chosen to donate her body so that people like me could learn. And that gift is very profound. It allows us to understand disease not from a slide or from a lecture, but from a human being who lived it. Like I said, it was 7 p.m. that day. I set my food down and I got to work. It's very meticulous. I mean, I spent a lot of time because she was overweight, digging out adipose fat tissue. And next thing you know, it's midnight, 5 hours later. And I look up and see my McDonald's bag there, and it's untouched, but it's just reeking with grease from the food there. And that's kind of like I had a eureka moment. Um, that I at that point, I felt like food really is symbolic of the choices that we can make. And we make these choices without thinking sometimes, kind of out of habit, out of convenience, and definitely out of culture. Um, at that moment, like I said, I looked at that bag, then I looked over at her, and I had a very honest thought that crossed my mind. And I was like, we're all going to die. I just don't want it to be my fault. And that means, we can't control everything about our future, but we can control the choices that we make daily. We can control the choices that either support health or slowly erode it. And from that night on, I never used that McDonald's card again, and not out of guilt, but out of awareness. That evening made me more cognizant of the connection between everyday decisions and long term health. It made me realize how easy it is to underestimate the cumulative impact of food, lifestyle, and small routines. And it made me grateful, deeply grateful, for the woman who donated her body. The generosity didn't just help me learn anatomy, it helped shape my philosophy. She taught me that disease is not abstract and that health is something we build intentionally, choice by choice. That experience wasn't dramatic, but it was defining. It planted a seed that eventually grew into everything I practice today around prevention, longevity, and living in a way that supports your future self.
Absolutely. I can see how that moment would be so impactful. Just the cause and effect of certain things almost. And I know you went through an emotionally difficult experience of losing your father during COVID. So, how did that really shape your shift into longevity prevention and inside out optimization?
Yeah, my father was my hero. I mean, he was an ex NFL lineman. He was a big guy, imposing, but he was so gentle and loving. Actually, his teammates called him Sugar Bear. And I mean, he was the kind of guy that made everyone feel safe in the room. So during COVID, I mean, like many families, COVID was something that we could never have imagined. It was not only hard for my family, but hard for millions of families across the world. We knew, so my father had some underlying conditions. I mean, he had high blood pressure, he had elevated cholesterol, he had type 2 diabetes. And we now know with certain clarity that these chronic metabolic diseases increase the risk of severe outcomes, meaning increase of morbidity and mortality for people who contracted COVID. So unfortunately, he contracted COVID and got sick, and he declined really fast, much faster than we expected. And, at this moment, suddenly I wasn't just his son, I was his health proxy. I was the one that the ICU team kept in constant contact, and we made decisions. I had to process his medical updates and interpret the realities and decide what was in his best interest. And that's where it came clear that continuing the aggressive interventions would only prolong his suffering. And as painful as it was, I made the decision to stop all interventions. And he died shortly after. And, as a doctor, you believe that you can save everyone. And for me not to be able to save my dad, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And I don't mean it to be dramatic or hyperbolic, but that moment, it changed me. I'm kind of like in a quiet internal shift, I guess. It made me think about like chronic diseases, and not in an abstract way, not what we're kind of taught in textbooks or charts, but it made me think of it in a very personal way, how these chronic diseases actually affect people and affect their families, how it determines the trajectory of people's lives. My father's passing opened my eyes to the suffering that people are going through and how preventable it is. It made me determined to practice medicine in a totally different way, and to focus on longevity, prevention, internal health, and choices that shape our resilience long before some certain crises happens. His life shaped me, his death shaped me. And the combination of both is why I do what I do, what type of work and medicine that I practice. When I talk about optimizing health span, we're talking about building metabolic strength, about preventing chronic diseases that take people too soon, and I do that because I've seen the other side, and I see it daily with patients, and I know what's at stake. So in a very real way, my father's passing is and my father himself is still part of everything that I do.
Absolutely. No, that's certainly profound. And being able to have someone that you said was a hero to you and is such a wonderful experience, but also going through what you went through and having to make those decisions, especially having the medical knowledge that you do, is something that is super difficult. And I can see how that would certainly shape you moving forward. At what point did you realize that maybe traditional practice wasn't aligned with how you believed health should be approached? What really pushed you to buy a practice and start a completely new model in Denver?
So the realization came gradually and then all at once. I mean, it started after my father passed, but it always had been building there. I was looking at healthcare and the structure of healthcare. Traditional medicine is essential, particularly for acute events. It saves lives every day, but fundamentally, it's reactionary. I mean, we wait for diseases to appear and then we do our best to manage it. And what I wanted to do was very different. I wanted to focus on prevention, on early detection, and helping people build metabolic resilience. And the truth is, the traditional medical model doesn't have space for that. There isn't room for long visits. There isn't the ability to truly actually have conversations regarding lifestyle. I mean, pretty much our visits are 7 to 12 minutes on average. And then there's not any financial incentive to actually, and I don't mean to sound cynical, but medical reimbursement is based on disease management, not prevention. And so I made a choice. I meant I could keep working the way that I had been, but I wasn't fulfilled. And, at the end of the day, I mean, yes, we can meet all of these benchmarks and, making sure that they're taking this medication for this disease process or they're having this procedure. But at the end of the day, I meant, America, we lead the world in healthcare expenses, but outcomes, we're depends on which study you look at, with high developing countries, some believe that we're around about 39 or 40th in outcomes. So I started thinking about it, and one day I decided I couldn't do the traditional practice. I would have to actually be truly involved and not dictated by the system. So I purchased a practice and redesigned it from the ground up. I wanted a place where I could partner with patients, truly partner with them to prevent and, when possible, reverse chronic diseases. I wanted the ability to dive deeper, to understand their physiology, to understand their lifestyle, their goals, to actually have a greater physician patient intimacy or relationship with them. And wanted to be there to help motivate them and educate them, to help to give them tools that would eventually, help them create change. And so I built a model around longer appointments. Typically, our appointments are an hour, hour and a half. We do advanced metabolic and performance testing. We discuss nutrition and lifestyle as true pillars or tenets of healthcare. Yeah, so we talk about strength, we talk about VO2 max, we talk about body composition, we talk about early intervention instead of late reaction. So leaving the traditional system wasn't about rejecting medicine, it was about expanding it. It was about practicing in a way that honors what actually improves health span. My mission is simple: to walk with patients, to empower them, to help them build a life where chronic disease is neither inevitable or nor their identity. This model, it gives me the space to do that.
Absolutely. And you've described your approach as inside out human optimization. So, what does that actually mean? And why does real longevity begin internally?
So, inside out human optimization means that we start where health actually lives, not on the surface, not with the symptoms, not in quick fixes, but your internal biology. Most people think longevity is about living longer, living younger, avoiding disease. But true longevity is the result of dozens of internal systems working well together. Your mitochondria, your hormones, your metabolism, your muscle, your brain, sleep, inflammation levels, all those things that you can't really see in a mirror. We fix the foundation first. We improve the environment your cells live in. We upgrade the systems that produce energy, regulate mood, build muscle, repair tissue, and determine how your body ages. And the beautiful part is, when the inside starts working, the outside almost always follows. Your skin changes, your body composition changes, your mood, your focus, your energy, your confidence change. Your ability to perform, athletically, cognitively, emotionally improves. People often come to me for aesthetics or weight loss or performance goals. But what they really want to feel is the best version of themselves. That version starts internally. Inside out optimization is the opposite of the traditional medical model, which typically waits for something that is broken and we try to patch it. What we do is more proactive. We identify the early signals of aging and metabolic decline long before they become disease. And then we intervene with lifestyle, nutrition, testing, obtaining data, peptides, regenerative tools. It's not about chasing youth, it's about building resilience. It's about creating a body that ages slowly, performs strongly, and looks healthy because it is healthy. So, yeah, so that's what inside optimization means to me. It's a philosophy and it's a framework. And honestly, it's a completely different way of practicing medicine and living life.
And also, you're one of the only physicians who really combines internal longevity with regenerative aesthetics. So, why do you believe that these two belong together? And why is this not anti aging vanity?
Great question. The reason I combine longevity with regenerative aesthetics is simple. Your internal health and your external appearance are not separate systems. They're two expressions of the same biology. Your skin, your facial structure, your collagen levels, your body composition, they're all reflections of what's happening internally. It's your nutrition status, your mitochondria health or energy production, your inflammatory loads, your hormonal balance, your metabolic health. So when people ask, why combine these? Because your face and your physiology tell the same story. What we do with regenerative aesthetics isn't superficial. It's regenerative medicine applied to the skin. We're talking about radiofrequency or microneedling or lasers or biostimulators or peptides. We're not masking aging. We're stimulating the body to repair itself, to rebuild collagen, to rebuild elastin, and restore function. It's the same philosophy that we use internally. We're activating the body's innate repair systems. But here is the other part that no one talks about. How you feel about yourself influences how you take care of yourself. When someone looks in the mirror and sees a healthier, more vibrant version of themselves, everything shifts. They move more, they eat better, they sleep better, their confidence changes. Their behavior follows their identity. Aesthetics isn't vanity. Aesthetics is psychology. Aesthetics is biology. Aesthetics is self perception. And self perception shapes behavior more than any medication or any lecture ever could. Truthfully, when you're optimizing the inside without supporting the outside, or vice versa, you're only giving people half of the transformation that they're capable of. When you combine regenerative aesthetics with longevity medicine, you create alignment. You create a coherence between how someone feels and how they look. You give them the experience of being the same person on the outside that they feel internally. That's not vanity, that's identity work. That's human nature. And it's one of the most powerful tools that we have for transformation.
Absolutely. And I know that you often say that evidence beats ideology. So, in a world of extreme diet trends and influencers and conflicting online advice, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you tend to see?
Yeah, this is big, definitely in today's world. The biggest misconceptions is that there's this one perfect diet or one perfect workout or some magic supplement that works for everyone. The internet isn't helping because every day there's someone that is proclaiming that they have the answers and that their way is the only way. And it's funny. I mean, we've turned nutrition and wellness into a religion. People pick a tribe: carnivore, keto, vegan, intermittent fasting, raw, paleo, and they defend it like it's a sports team. The problem is that once something becomes an ideology, people stop looking at the science. And the truth is, the human body is way too complex for one size fit all solutions. What works for one person might be a disaster for someone else. Because our genetics, our microbiome, our metabolism, our stress, our sleep, our hormone balance, they're all different. So I've been plant based for more than 25 years, and that works incredibly well for me. But I'm not trying to convert people. But, we do have discussions about a plant centric diet. But I'm not sitting in the waiting room or in the exam room handing out vegan brochures and saying that this is the only way. What I'm doing, I'm looking at their labs, I'm looking at their inflammation markers, their VO2 max, their muscle mass, and actually sitting down with them with the ability that we have with time, trying to determine what their goals are. And we make these recommendations for them based on data, not dogma. Another misconception is that people think extremes equal results. The more restrictive it is, the more magical it must be. And that's not at all. I mean, most people don't need extreme diets. What most people need is better protein intake, better sleep, more muscle, better cardio conditioning, less processed foods. And they need a routine that they can actually follow. The basics applied consistently will beat any trend. So when I say evidence beats ideology, I mean this. The body doesn't care about trends, it cares about biology. And biology responds to what's sustainable, adaptable, measurable, and actually supported by research, and not what goes viral on TikTok. I want people to stop fighting over which diet is the best and start asking a more important question: what does my body need to thrive? And that's where the real conversations regarding longevity occur.
Absolutely. And this is something you're not just teaching, you're actually living it. So, like you said, plant based, high rocks athlete, biologically 41, but cardiovascular actually 31. So, that's super impressive. So, why is embodiment such an important part of your philosophy?
Embodiment is credibility. I mean, it's really important to me. I never want to be that doctor that says, do as I say, not as I do. I mean, I have patients tell me all the time they met that doctor, and, the question they have is, has that guy or that woman exercised since the Clinton administration? So, a long time ago, I made a decision that I wanted to live out of alignment with what I teach. I'm not perfect, far from it, but I know how powerful it is for people to see that their doctor is walking the same path that they're on. And I don't live this way because I love discipline. I'm not a monk. I live this way because I love feeling good. I love waking up with energy. I love training for high rocks, even though the sled pushes, they make me question some life decisions sometimes. I love knowing that my lifestyle is adding years and quality to my life. Honestly, if I'm going to talk about longevity, about vitality, about strength, about performance, I want to embody those things. Not in a look at me kind of way, but in a way that says that this is possible for you. Because here's the inspirational part. I'm not doing anything magical. I'm not genetically gifted. I'm not eating ancient herbs that are harvested under a full moon. I'm just consistent, simply consistent. I choose habits that support what I consider the future version of what I want to become. And anyone listening can do the same, starting with one choice, one workout, one meal, one night of better sleep. Embodiment matters because it shows people that this isn't just theory. It's not hype. It's not reserved for athletes or biohackers. It's a lifestyle, one that anyone can build, one small win at a time. If I can be 54 with a biological age of 41 and a cardiovascular age of 31, live plant based, train for races, run a clinic, and still be excited about health every single day, then absolutely anyone else can do it and create their vision or their version of that. I want people to feel inspired, not intimidated, because longevity isn't about perfection. It's about momentum. It's about alignment. And it's about believing that your best years aren't behind you, they are ahead of you.
Absolutely. That's such a really inspirational way to think about it. And can you break down the pillars of the Young Lab for us? So, what are the core areas that you focus on when you're helping someone truly optimize their health span?
Yeah. So the three pillars really came from years of noticing the same pattern. I mean, people want to feel good, they want to look good, they want to perform well. But typically most approaches address one or two of these things. When you combine all three, that's when the transformation actually sticks. That's when people become the strongest, the healthiest version of themselves. So we've built the Young Lab with these three pillars. The first pillar is internal longevity. Fix the inside so the whole system works. This is where everything begins. We look under the hood, talking about mitochondria, hormones, inflammation, metabolism, body composition, VO2 max, cognition, sleep. Most people are walking around with warnings flashing on the dashboard and have no idea. Internal longevity is about identifying these signals and correcting them long before they turn into symptoms or disease. This is the foundation, the blueprint of the operating system. When the inside is optimized, everything else becomes easier. The second pillar is performance. Longevity is earned through movement. And people may not want to hear this. They always don't, but you can't separate longevity from physical performance. Muscle is the organ of longevity. VO2 max is one of the strongest predictors of lifespan. Your strength protects your bones, your brain, your metabolism. I mean, it's intertwined everywhere. Performance doesn't mean that you have to sign up for high rocks, but it does mean that you have to move your body in a way that challenges it, that grows it, that supports your energy and your long-term independence. This is the pillar that keeps people capable, able to travel, to lift their grandkids, to climb stairs at 90, and live without limitation. And honestly, it's the most fun. This is where people remember what their bodies are capable of. And then the third pillar is regenerative aesthetics. Let the outside reflect the work that you're doing on the inside. The same biology that governs your energy and metabolism also governs your skin, your collagen, and your structural integrity. Regenerative aesthetics is about supporting the biology, not hiding it. Lasers, or RF, or radio frequency, or microneedling, or biostimulators, peptides. These are tools that stimulate the body to rebuild, repair, and restore. It's the same regenerative principles we use internally, just apply it to the skin. Now, let's be honest, when someone looks healthier, they tend to act healthier. There's a psychological momentum that happens. You see progress, you feel proud, and suddenly the habits get better. Aesthetics can actually reinforce longevity. And so bringing it all together, when you combine these three pillars, internal health, performance, and regenerative aesthetics, people just don't age well. They live well. They're stronger, they're sharper, they're more confident, they're more energetic. They feel like themselves again, or honestly, a version of themselves that they had never met before. And that's what these three pillars are designed for, to give people the blueprint for a longer, more vibrant, more powerful life, inside and out.
Absolutely. And for someone starting this journey with us, what can they expect from this show? So, what do you really hope that they can take away from the Young Lab over the next 25 episodes?
So, what I really want people to feel as they go through these episodes is that they're not doing this alone, that this isn't a lecture series, it's a partnership. We're walking with them step by step, helping them understand their bodies in a way that most of us were never taught. Over the next 25 episodes, we're going to dive into things that actually matter for longevity and the stuff that truly moves the needle, meaning how you build muscle that protects you as you're aging. How do you improve your VO2 max without feeling like you need to join the Olympics? How to eat in a way that supports your biology without feeling like you have to join a cult. And yes, we talk about aesthetics, how to age gracefully and confidently without trying to look like your 18-year-old self who's survived on pizza and 4 hours of sleep. I want people to realize that they have more control than what they've been told in the past. Aging isn't something that happens to you. You get to influence it. You get to shape it. You get to design how you feel in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and beyond. And I want them to feel hopeful, truly hopeful, because, I think once you understand the inner workings of your metabolism, your hormones, your muscle, your sleep patterns, things start to click. Suddenly, I mean, you're not guessing anymore. You're not overwhelmed by the trends or the influencers shouting contradictory things. You actually know what the next step is. Yes, we'll laugh a little bit along the way. I tend to think I'm pretty funny. Longevity doesn't need to be this serious, man. I can understand it can be an intimidating pursuit, but half of the time we're just talking about making small decisions, choosing a walk instead of the couch, choosing protein instead of sugar, choosing sleep over another Netflix episode. And yeah, sometimes I'm guilty of that too. So, but you can start today. I mean, there's hope. There's things that I want them to be able to take away that that would help them get stronger, feel younger, and absolutely become the healthiest version of themselves. Also, giving them the understanding that it doesn't matter how old you are or where you're starting from. If listeners walk away from each episode thinking, okay, I can do this, I'm not alone, then we've done our job. I'm not here to talk at people. I'm here to work with them, to walk with them. If we can build that partnership, that momentum, that belief that their best years are still ahead, then this podcast is already a success.
Absolutely. For the first episode, I know I already feel inspired to. I'm going through my mind of little changes I can start to implement. So, thank you so much for opening this season with honesty and clarity. I think that this episode really does set the stage for everything that we will be going to explore, from metabolic testing to peptides, from VO2 max to aesthetics, from mindset to performance. So, if you're ready to take control of your biology and really become stronger, sharper, and younger from the inside out, subscribe and join us on this journey. Thank you so much, Dr. Young. I cannot wait for our next episode. And our listeners, I'm so excited too. So I cannot wait to see you next time.
Thank you.